Hello, I'm Vinny Catalano and welcome back. On June 25th, NYSSA is hosting the Latin American Capital Markets Conference here at the offices of the New York Society. And I am delighted to have two of the organizers of this event here with us today to discuss this event and a few other items. Patrick Holert and Daniel Fridson. Guys, welcome.
Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you.
Let's talk, before we get into the conference, let's kind of talk a little bit about the committee that you guys are involved with, which is the Global Investing Committee, correct? And that's responsible for putting on this and a whole bunch of other events. So let's talk a little bit about the committee and a little bit about yourselves. So why don't you go first, Patrick? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Daniel.
Sure. I work for BBVA Securities as a research principal. We have offices across Latin America and Europe, and so I spend most of my time dealing with regulatory and operating issues and research. Okay. I spent most of my career in Asia, and so when I returned to the U.S., I spent some time in Los Angeles where I ran a special interest group through the CFA Society of Los Angeles focusing on Asia.
Oh, okay.
And then when I came to New York, I got involved with the Global Investing Committee under Heidi Thompson. And when Heidi retired, I took on the chair role. And we're continuing to build our committee base and put together events on emerging markets. Great. Our goal is to put together events on every emerging markets region over the next 12 months.
That's terrific. And Daniel, yourself?
Yes, I'm an analyst at Real Assets Research. So it's based in New York, and we cover mostly the natural resource sector. We do have a significant focus on emerging markets. So that's sort of where my interest in the committee came in. I really like the mission of providing a forum for emerging market investment discussion over here in New York, where there was, previously had been based more in places like London or Asia, and then. At that time, as you mentioned, Heidi Thompson was the chair of the committee, and then Patrick took over. But we've been trying to build it the whole. That's
perfect. A natural fit for both of you in that regard. Let's talk a little bit about the conference itself. It's got quite a lineup. How did you go about when you're putting this whole thing together? Okay, talk a little bit about how the decision making in terms of how you ended up doing it. Either one of you, Daniel, Patrick, whichever way.
Well, obviously Latin America is a very important market in the emerging markets arena. So we wanted to do something on Latin America. And most of our conferences are structured in the way that we have panels talking about the economics of the region, talking about private equity opportunities in the region, debt and credit opportunities in the region, and public equities in the region. And so we have a panel on each of those.
It's structured that way. Exactly.
It's structured that way.
Right.
And so we will set out a structure like that, and then filling in the speakers is more of a bottom-up effort where we're going to people that we know or
a lot of dialing and smiling.
Well, most of the people we know personally.
Right. Okay. Very good. And your role in this?
Yeah, I just add to that. Yeah, I'm in the I'm in the role of engaging speakers and trying to plan the conferences. And I just say that these are rapidly evolving areas. Sure. So there before there might have been only certain investment vehicles available. So we want to give the full range of options of people discussing. Sure. What are the evolving role of capital markets in all these emerging areas.
Now, throughout the day, you guys are taking an active role in this, correct? I mean, you didn't just put this together and then let somebody else do it. You guys are, pretty much actively involved throughout the hosting segments, I think, and things like that, interacting with some of the panels.
We're there all day, so we're involved in running the show along with the NYSSA staff.
Great.
So.
Great stuff. Now, one of the things that I find kind of interesting, and I'm not asking for a market strategy sort of thing here, okay, but this is either going to be fantastic timing or this is going to be, well, maybe we're a little early or something like that. I mean, I'm looking at the performance of the Latin American markets since this bull market got started. Off to the races in the beginning. Absolutely fantastic, beat the S&P 500. But then it looks like since, 2011, give or take. From that period to the present, emerging markets, Latin American markets, flatlined, in terms of overall performance. Do you have any sense of, in that regard, taking, your own knowledge in this area, do you have any sense of, I mean, I can see obviously the timeliness of this, but any thoughts about the Latin American market in general, and about how you think this conference is going to address some of the issues like the one I just raised in terms of performance? Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's such a broad region. You really have to look country by country. I mean, Mexico's a much different country than Brazil.
Right.
We have a view on all of the countries in the region, or at least the major ones, and as well as people who will be coming and speaking at the event. So we want people to come and hear what specialists are thinking about the different countries, and collectively that forms the basis for their opinion on the region.
Right. Which raises an interesting point. You have it laid out by, as you mentioned before, equity markets, debt markets, things like that. And then you just mentioned Mexico and countries and all. How do you envision, knowing the people that are going to be presenting, how do you envision they're presenting about some of those opportunities? I mean, Brazil is different than Chile, is different than others. Any thoughts on that in terms of from a presentation country to country perspective, how the speakers are going to address that?
Well, I think each of the speakers have their own experiences investing in various countries. These are all people who are very familiar with the Latin American market, and from there, for each speaker on each panel, they'll give a perspective about, say, equities in Brazil or debt in Mexico, and from there we create a conversation to say, okay, which sectors are behaving which way in which country, and present sort of a nuanced sort of country by country view, speaking to Patrick's point.
Exactly. The people that you have, are they based in New York, Latin America, both? The speakers?
In this case, I would say most of our speakers are based in New York.
Okay.
We have one speaker coming from Los Angeles.
Okay.
For some of our events,
LA is Latin America, just used with different letters, right? LA,
basically.
Okay.
But for some of our conferences, we do have people traveling internationally to come here to
and everybody
speak.
who's talking also, that's speaking at the event, has obviously contacts and relationships.
And many of them have spent significant amounts of time in Latin American offices within their countries.
Exactly, like you describing that Asia.
Well, they're all following Latin America full time.
Right.
As part of their responsibility. Some are managing specific Latin American funds, some are managing emerging market funds, of which their Latin American portfolio is a big part.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to leave everybody with here in terms of, because we're about to wrap up, in terms of the conference, any particular items that you can think of, any particular area that you might be really keen to, to tune into, at the event? Because, I look at the agenda, it looks fantastic. Daniel, any particular segment that you're going to be especially interested in?
Well, I'm very interested in the I think will be particularly interesting for a lot of our viewers is the equity panel, because a lot of people have found opportunities even as equities haven't necessarily been the best sector.
Exactly. And Patrick, for yourself?
For people who aren't that familiar with the region, I think it's a great chance to get a good overview of what's going on. And for people who are specialized in one asset class, I think it's a good opportunity for them to hear what people from other asset classes are saying.
Absolutely, and your private equity segment, things like that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely terrific. Well, guys, thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in. Remember, it's June 25th here at NYSSA. Please do come, check it out, I think you'll find it'll be time very well spent. Thank you very much.